In America, cops and bosses are held to a completely different standard than normal working people, which is to say, no standard at all.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
There's this story, this local story out of Huntsville that about the protest that happened a couple of years ago. And this new update is that the sheriff and the city of Huntsville cannot be sued for assault and battery, a Madison County judge found last week, which is super convenient for the sheriff in the city of Huntsville. During the police riot in Huntsville a couple of years ago, April Grubb was shot by rubber bullets, ripping open her calf, and she had not, nor did the police even allege that she damaged any property or hurt any person. Cops say instead that they deployed this force to prevent the possibility that riots would happen. But April says she was actually complying with orders to disperse when she was shot. But cops think that it's justified to deploy this force to prevent something that there was no indication was going to be happening, because maybe possibly it would happen.
Yeah, and I saw no damage downtown, of course, except for one broken window that most people seem to believe was fired by police or something.
Yeah.
And that business was also supporting the protesters. So,
yeah. And the protesters then raised money to replace the window for them. Yeah.
And if y'all have seen the footage or like the images of the damage these things can cause, it's serious damage. What are they? 2 or 3 inch length rubber bullets?
Yeah.
Fired out of a shotgun or a rifle. It's it is no joke.
No joke at all.
And I guess no one can be held accountable for that. It was just
no.
I don't know if you mind me jumping in, but what bugged me is the way that no one seemed to know who was in charge that day. City police were supposedly in charge, but there was snipers on the roof. There was state troopers everywhere with all sorts of weapons that were not supposed to be there.
Right.
And that was really disappointing to have such mayhem. And of course, no one's in charge. Chief McMurray is gone now, and no one to blame there.
Yeah, so the charges against the sheriff and the city have now been dismissed by the Madison County Circuit Judge Alan Mann. So for now, though, the suit against the unnamed cops responsible, it does continue, but it's almost certainly just a matter of time before they dismiss that charge too, because in America, cops and bosses are held to a completely different standard than normal working people, which is to say, no standard at all. It's just crazy. We'll see what happens with that suit against the unnamed cops, but I can't imagine it going anywhere. But it's incredibly frustrating because April wasn't the only person that was hurt, that was shot by these rubber bullets and had their leg ripped open. A friend of mine also did, and a friend of mine for at least a year, I haven't talked to him in a long time, but at least a year after, he was having trouble walking. But there's no consequences for anybody about this.
Yeah, and many people not even involved in the active protest were being maced. I know a few people walking to the protest who were maced by state police. And that was there's some great footage of cops rolling down the street far off the square and just macing people.
It's just, and you had friends that were arrested that day, right?
I did, yes. I had multiple friends, and I believe I had one friend who missed work and ended up quitting their job because they were in lockup. And although people arrived with bail money that evening, they were not processed or released that day or that evening, despite having money in hand that to bail these people out.
Right. So they weren't able to be bailed out and join the riot again that same night?
Yeah, I guess that was I don't know. They said there was shift change. They said they don't do it after a certain amount of time. There was a lot of excuses thrown around. But yeah,
It's just crazy. Absolutely
And
crazy.
I believe there's legislation to be able to keep people in jail. Is that right? I think you talked about that previously.
Yeah, we talked to the sponsor of the bill actually for like an hour.
Just throw them in jail indefinitely. Like, who needs them rights? You know?
Yeah, under that bill that he was proposing, that almost certainly he's going to propose again in this legislative session coming up after the election. But in that legislation he was proposing, you could be thrown in jail, convicted of a felony, thrown in jail for 6 months without ever having to have damaged any property or hurt any person or even been caught in the act of doing that.
Yep.
But you could still be thrown in jail for quote-unquote rioting for 6 months.
And I know personally a few people were held under legal. I mean, they were. I think some were convicted over the January 6th, but almost all of them were dismissed. And one gentleman that they brought to court was getting in his car, leaving with the car on, and they dragged him out of his car, and he was arrested. And then they ended up dismissing the charges, of course, because I don't see how any judge could could penalize someone for being in their car trying to leave a protest. And then
you said January 6th, but you meant the June
6th.
protest,
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I was like,
political
whoa, wow.
salad.
Wow, you had friends who were who were in January 6th. Wow, that's pretty. You've got a real.
Yeah, and the FBI, they're really.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.